Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Cellar Talks, Season 6, Episode 2. And today we are talking to a winery from Montalcino in the second episode in our series that focuses on Tuscany. And the winery that we will be talking to and about is San Polo in Montalcino. So I already see the winemaker online, and now I'm waiting for them to come online with their accounts. And as soon as they're ready and online, they will join us for the interview. We will be talking for about 1 hour and talk about Montalcino in general, San Polo, and of course Riccardo Fratton, who's the winemaker. So let's wait a minute to see when they're ready, and we will start the live session. The session will also be recorded for those of you who cannot make it till the end. So we're going to put it online afterwards as well. And now I'm looking to see if I can find San Polo. Riccardo, I think you are watching if you're on the San Polo account. We will also taste one of the San Polo wine, Brunello, the regular quote-unquote Brunello di Montalcino, 2018. So that will be the wine that we will be drinking and discussing together. And for the rest, if you have any questions, feel free to write them down in the chat, but you can also ask them at the end, because we will try to save most of the questions till the end of the interview. So just 1 more minute until we can get San Polo online. Should you have some wine in your glass tonight, feel free to let us know what you're drinking. And now let's just wait. Okay, should be okay right now. And now let's see if I can invite them. Always takes a minute for us to get connected, but in the meanwhile, we will just hold tight until they're ready. I see that you're Riccardo, so I think you still have to switch in the app to the San Polo account, but let's see. I'll take a sip of my water until we start with the wine tonight. I will tell you guys a little bit about what we are going to do next. So next week we have episode 3 coming up, which is with also an iconic winery and winemaker. It's Paolo De Marchi from Isola Olena, which is one of the iconic winemakers in Chianti. So we'll be talking to them with them next Friday around 8 o'clock as well. So that's our next episode. And like I said, today we are focusing on Montalcino, as we did last week with Bibi Graz. We focused on Tuscany in general. So let's. Yes, now I see San Polo is watching, so let's invite them to come online. And I hope Riccardo gets this invitation so that we can get the interview started. Just hold tight. I think we can get them in right now. Yes. Yes, Riccardo.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
So
Good evening.
it's working.
Yeah, it took a bit, but we finally made it.
That's okay. It's a typical thing when Instagram has multiple accounts on a phone. Sometimes, even though you're logged in, it's not able
Yeah,
to pick the right one. Let's put
it's
it
not
like that.
as easy as it seems, but
No. But
no
let's
problem.
hope that we now have a solid connection for the next
Of
hour, and
course.
we can have some nice chats about Montalcino and about San Polo, and of course about you as well. So
For sure.
I'm very happy to have you in the talk
I'm
show.
very glad to be here. Thank
Okay.
you for having me.
The story about the winery and about yourself is very interesting because it's a history that's not like decades long. You are both quite young. You are still relatively young for a winemaker, but also the estate is still quite
Yeah.
young. So today I would like to walk with you through the history, but also look forward and talk about your philosophy. So what makes San Polo different, and what is your philosophy in winemaking? So
Yeah.
maybe we can start a little bit with some introduction from yourself to give the people some background about what you did until the point that you arrived at San Polo.
Yeah. So actually, I'm working in Tuscany right now, but I was born in Verona, so in the northern part of Italy, in Valpolicella area, which is famous for the production of Amarone da Valpolicella. I studied winemaking. Actually, my family doesn't own any land, so I have no history in the wine production. I've always been very passionate about wine, so I thought it could be nice actually to study winemaking. And then I got like even more passionate about the production of the wine, about all the details. I started visiting wineries, trying to understand much and much more. And then I graduated in 06, so quite some years ago already. And then the first thing that I did was moving to California because I wanted to broaden a bit my experience and to be able to travel to see new places, new production techniques. And so I've been working actually in Central Coast, close to Paso Robles in California for a couple of years, between 07 and 08. And then I came back in 2009 because I started feeling a bit homesick. So the experience has been really nice, but actually a couple of years I thought they were enough. And so I said, okay, let's go back home. And then when I came back home, of course, I started looking for a job in my area. And I started working actually for the Bertani family in Valpolicella, which is a quite historical, like wine producing family. And I've been working there as an assistant winemaker from 09 to 2015. And then I was really, really lucky because at like a wine event, I met Marilisa Allegrini, so the owner, of course, of the Allegrini winery, and also the Tuscany state, which I'm working now, so San Polo. And actually, we started talking. We had some like common friends, and she offered me the opportunity to come to San Polo and to work as a winemaker here in Montalcino, which I thought was a nice opportunity. And so
it's an iconic region as well, Montalcino. I mean, internationally, but also in Italy. I mean, it has a certain stature as well.
Yes, it's one of the probably most iconic places all over the world where to have the possibility to make wines. So I said, I saw it like a train passing. So I said, I want to get in for sure. And then we'll see where it goes. This was 2015, now it's 2023. So a couple years or maybe a bit more than a couple years passed. And I'm still here. So it was probably the right choice.
I'm still happy. I see you smiling, so I assume you're still happy.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with my choice. I love, of course, Montalcino as an area in general, because here you have really the possibility to make great wines. And what I love about Montalcino is the fact that being working with the Sangiovese here really gives you the possibility to try to make probably one of the best wines made with the Sangiovese in the whole world. Of course, we are trying to do it. It's going to take a while, but it's something that you can do because Montalcino is really one of the best places where you can be growing Sangiovese.
So while you're talking about the terroir and the climate and the soil and everything, the combination makes it most suitable for Sangiovese. That's what your opinion is on this.
Yes, I mean, of course, Tuscany is the overall, like
in general,
Tuscany in general is the area in which, of course, in my opinion, Sangiovese gives the best results. And within Tuscany, honestly, I think, of course, I mean, it's normal for me to say that Montalcino is the best area, but I think there are like probably two best areas. One is Montalcino, and the other one, which I love, it's Chianti Classico too. So
but
I think
very different styles in the end.
Of course, yes. Really different.
In terms of the grape, even.
Yeah.
Sangiovese both, but you cannot call it
Piccolo, Sangiovese Grosso, so but I think both of these two areas can give really high quality expressions of Sangiovese, and really I feel that we are working with the right variety. We are not using any international variety. We're not fighting with any other place all over the world. It's just we are, in my opinion, in the right place where to try to grow one of the best and high quality Sangiovese all over the world, which is a really intriguing and a really fun challenge.
Yeah, so you feel it's a perfect fit for you to work with in the situation.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So we will talk a little bit more about the different versions of Sangiovese, because you know I have a question for you about that. As last week we talked to Bibi Graz, and he also has his strong opinions, of course, like every winemaker, but he was very curious to see what you think about Sangiovese and the different versions of that. So we'll save that for a little later. What is interesting is that you already mentioned Marilisa Allegrini. She bought the estate. So there was an existing estate. We'll zoom into that a little bit later, but that was in 2007 when they first bought a part of the estate or the stake in the estate, right?
Yes.
And then in 2015, she became the full owner, and you also entered into the winery.
She purchased the whole, the whole shares, kind of, because the Allegrini family, of course, they were born in Valpolicella area. Now Marilisa Allegrini is the 7th generation involved in the wine production, so they are quite a historical family. In the early 2000s, they decided to face a challenge going beyond borders of Valpolicella, looking for nice areas where they could have the possibility to make very high quality wines. They immediately thought about Tuscany, and in 2007, actually, they arrived here in Montalcino. Marilisa was looking for an estate to buy here in Montalcino, and actually the previous owners of San Polo were a family from Mantova. Mantova is a city very close by to Verona. Actually, they were family friends, and so actually Marilisa and her family, so her daughters, took the
opportunity to buy this.
Exactly. Yes, she saw really a very nice opportunity, and so she said, "Okay, I will buy." Actually, prior to Marilisa's acquisition, the estates were two separate. One was called San Polo, and one was called Montluc. They were like neighbor estates, and they were belonging to a brother and a sister.
So there were a family. The estates were families, but the people owning it was also families. Basically, they were together, more or less. Although they have their own names and wines. Okay, it's an interesting story. I think the momentum is also interesting to see, because when you see happening, of course, there were in the last 10-15 years, there were a few standout vintages also for Montalcino. 2010, I already saw somebody was in the chat saying, actually, I'm drinking now 2013. I think it's great to drink now, but maybe you can even say more about that. But I think now 13, it already had quite some aging, but it's really nice. But the 10 is one of the standout vintages, and the 15 and 16 as well. So the momentum to buy and to start in 7 and also even fully buy in 15 was good. I mean, it probably wasn't cheap, but it became a lot more expensive after these years as well. If you want to start now in Montalcino, it's going to be more difficult and going to cost you probably a lot more money.
Of course. yes, yes. Actually, there is a lot of value right now here in Montalcino. I always say that, I mean, of course, Marlisa actually has been quite lucky to buy San Polo in 07, because really from those years, then we were lucky enough to have very nice vintages, like as you said, the 10, 12, 13, and then of course 15, 16. And since when I came here in 2015, I've been quite lucky too, because I started with 2015, which was not bad at all. I have to admit, and then 2016, and then I love the 18, even if it's considered like kind of a minor vintage, but I don't agree at all with that. And then like 2020, 21, 22. So yeah, we were quite lucky.
I think with the 18, and this is very, very tricky to say, because I want to talk with you about that later. People think about Montalcino and they think it's all one and the same, but it's very different depending on which hill you are and which situation you have. In a better vintage or worse vintage, it could very well be that one winemaker in Montalcino excels, and the other one delivers a wine which is not bad maybe, but just average. So the vintage on its own doesn't say a lot.
Yes.
If you don't know the winemakers.
This is really, really true.
Right?
Yes, this is super true, because Montalcino is very kind of various terroir depending on which slope you are, because basically Montalcino is like hills everywhere. So depending on which altitude you are, which slope, so if you're facing north, south, east, or west, the kind of soil that you have, really all these combinations make a very big difference on the style of wine and on the quality of wine that you can produce in every specific vintage. And I always say that working with Sangiovese makes this even like gives to this even a higher impact, because I always say that Sangiovese really shows the characteristics of the terroir in which you grow it. So when you change the terroir, it changes completely wine.
It does what it gets. It doesn't. Exactly. I mean, you cannot change that.
I always say it's a very kind of honest variety, meaning that it's not suitable for every terroir. And of course, Sangiovese is not planted everywhere. Just in very specific
you see it
areas.
If you think about other places in the world. I mean, there are some, but there are never notable wines made from that. I mean,
yes.
It's a gimmick, more or less, to have
a very demanding kind of varietal. So you have to find the right place, and it's really showing the characteristics of the place where you're growing it. So really, when you talk about Brunello di Montalcino, we should be talking about Brunellos or Brunelli, depending on which language, di Montalcino, meaning that really there are many different styles, many different variations on Brunello di Montalcino, depending on where you grow it, even if there is just one variety, which is of course 100% Sangiovese, but actually even in one vintage, the variations are quite high from this point of view. So when people are talking about 2018, in general, they say, oh, it's an average vintage. But I really, as you said, I agree completely. It depends on where is your estate. It has not been a super wonderful vintage overall in the whole Montalcino area, like could have been like 15.
With the 15 and 16, it's difficult to find any producer that made an average wine. They were all in the top, more or less.
Yeah, top level. 2018 was a bit more like various, depending on where you were. But what I like about 2018 is the fact that it's a bit more classic in style. So like older style vintage, not too warm, quite rainy. So shows really well the delicacy that Sangiovese can show in a cooler vintage. Which
maybe also to drink it earlier. It's for me, it's a vintage. I mean, I had a few, not that many different 18s, but what stands out for me is that you don't have to be afraid to open it now. I mean, a lot of times people wait, but with the 18, it's a vintage that you can start enjoying.
Very enjoyable right now, which is nice because we need some vintages like this, I think, because we are always thinking about Brunello, which is a wine that we should wait years and years to open. We have vintages that we can wait, 15, 16, and others. But it's nice sometimes to have vintages that we can drink sooner. So we have still some Brunello to drink while we are waiting for the...
It needs to be a little bit up and down so that we can vary a bit. You already mentioned Marlisa, but she's not the only one involved from the Allegrini family. So the two daughters are also involved into the winery. Actually, they were very involved from 15 onwards into the estate. So Carlotta and Katrina, they actually work also with you together on managing the estate. How is that to work with a winery that is that has 3 women in the family that are actually leading together with you guys this winery? What does it bring for you?
I think it's actually it is quite fun. I mean, in like the employees of San Polo, we are like half men, half women.
Okay.
So really like 50-50. Because Marilisa and her daughters like I always say, like kidding but not too much, say that they like women power, and I think that women in business can really give a very nice value. Specifically what Marilisa and then Carlotta and Caterina are doing, they are really like present here, not always physically, of course, because they are based in Verona. So it's not, I mean, it's 350 kilometers.
Yeah, so
not
you
super
could
far, but
go
not
every day back and forward.
Exactly.
To work.
Would be a bit too far. But actually, we talk almost every day. Can be like emails, WhatsApp, or like
so very
involved. We meet. Yes, which is really important because they like we want to always have the same direction. We want to push towards the same direction, which is really important. As we said, San Polo is a young state. We are really we think that we have a huge potential that we are trying to express, of course, as soon as possible. So we need to be really focusing on the same things.
You need to shift quickly, and you need to respond to what's happening. You cannot let it wait or think, okay, we do that next year.
No,
when there is something to tackle, you tackle it now.
Exactly.
Not, wait for that.
And that's really a characteristic that is very specific of Marilisa, and also, of course, she, in a way, gave it also to Carlotta and to Caterina. When there is something that needs to be discussed, we want to discuss it right away. We really are very active in a way. We look forward to be doing things, to be improving. We like experimenting new things because, as said, we are in a very traditional area, of course, like Montalcino is, but we are a young estate, and so we are not afraid of experimenting, of trying new things, because our goal is to keep improving every day. And from this point of view, really being able to work with Marilisa, Carlotta, and Caterina is a very big luck for me. Also because they don't want to consider any kind of compromise, So they really just want to push and to grow every day. Of course, the goal is to make it the highest quality possible. I think we are quite lucky because the location where San Polo is quite nice. And so we think we have all the ingredients, and we need to be able to put them in together in the right way to bring San Polo where it deserves to be. It's going to take.
And it takes time, of course, to understand these ingredients. So the vineyards, the vines, everything. I mean, you can. Also, technology helps you these days a little bit with understanding soils, etc. But still, you need to see what's happening, and every vintage brings a different climate, for instance. So the response to that is, well, with your eyes and with your senses, you can get more than just looking at data or technical.
Which is actually, I think, the most fun part of the job. You know, it's not, it's never boring. It's never the same every day, or even less every year. No, there are like things that we need to, like decisions that we need to rethink, that we need to change sometimes. And really the part that probably I love the most about my job is the fact that, of course, I'm based here in Montalcino. I live in Montalcino and I work every day here at San Polo, so I can really walk through the vineyards every day.
You walk
get to know the specific area that there are.
You walk to work and then you already see the vineyards.
Exactly. Yes. So it is really, because I feel that I mean, our goal is to produce really wines that show the terroir, so the specific place, and it's very important to be here. And this is one of the things that I think the Allegrini family is doing really super right. They never had like a kind of head winemaker overlooking all the states. So like flying here and there between
Cellar and within the different estates.
Exactly. So that the technical management is really specific for every single estate, because what really the Allegrini family wants to do is produce like wines that show the terroir. So to be able to show the terroir, you need to know it.
What is happening in your backyard,
exactly.
and not
you
cannot manage 10 different backyards. It's not possible to.
Exactly, which is really nice, and that's why I always say that when people ask me what is my job, I say, okay, I'm the winemaker, but I like talking about myself more as like a producer. So I have a technical background, that's okay, but I really like walking through the vineyards and then walking in the cellar, tasting the wines, feeling like really we are, every decision that we are making
overall responsible
every day
for the end product.
Exactly.
And this is not just the cellar or the vineyard, or it's a total picture.
Yes, right.
I already also see somebody says the 2010 Reserva, still one of the best Brunellos I tasted from you guys. So there you go. 2010.
Yes.
You were only 7 years or 3 years in the business there. You were not even there. It's only got better.
Yeah, very nice vintage, very nice wine.
Very good. Okay, I have to agree, by the way, what you were saying, because I had a chat with Carlotta earlier, I think 2 months ago, in preparation for the article that we wrote, and I could sense that they are very passionate, first of all, about the project, not just this project, also the project in Bulgaria, which we were also going to talk about later. So when you say, okay, we have our own shop, more or less, your colleague is going to we're going to test that, because we have the luck of having 2 Allegrini estates in this season, so we can let him talk about Bulgaria, and he's probably going to say the same.
And then we can check.
Yeah, but she was very passionate. You could tell when you heard them talk, and it's really their project of the 3 of them. And of course, they have the whole business of Allegrini, which also needs to be run. This is why it's even more, I would say, admirable that they find time to focus still on these particular estates, because the whole business is huge, right? I mean, you do a lot of business, and Bulgaria does a lot of business, but then you still have Allegrini in the north. I mean, this is not a small.
No, and I think like the Allegrini business in general, meaning like Valpolicella, Bulgaria, and Montalcino, I think it's very demanding for like Marlisa, Carlotta, and Caterina. Sometimes I really don't know how they can kind of handle all this, because they have like kind of endless energy. They are always like very focused. They are always, of course, super passionate, and this is of course very important. But they really have, I don't know, I think it's some kind of genetics. I don't know, because I'm, I see sometimes Marilisa, when I'm like super tired, I cannot do anything. She's still super like full of energy. So they're very lucky from this point of view. And I'm trying to learn how they can do this, so they can improve a bit and have all that energy that they have, because they have like 3 businesses.
It's a good trait to have.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, very, very nice pictures.
I think they can also learn, obviously, from you, like everybody can learn from everybody, because somebody's just saying that you're not only the best winemaker in the region, but also the best 90s dance party host. So probably you know who said this, but yeah, I mean, this is your hidden talent, maybe, besides the winemaking. Very good.
Yes, that's very nice too.
So let's talk a little bit about, I don't want to zoom in too much on what makes Montalcino, because people can read about that, and a lot of wine lovers know about what is Montalcino. Of course, you have Brunello. You already mentioned Sangiovese is not a word you actually really use there. It's Brunello. So, I mean, it's the own variety, or the own, let's say, a version of Sangiovese, which is a very particular thing. But there's also quite some strict rules when it comes to the aging, etc. So this is all locked up, and there's a consortium that runs that. So we don't want to talk too much about that. But what I would like to talk with you about a little bit is the portfolio. So the wines that you make, for the people to understand what kind of different wines you make. We reviewed a few of them. Tonight we are actually going to drink together the Brunello the classic
I have
Brunello.
it here too.
Brunello
Brunello di
very good.
Montalcino.
Yeah, the 18,
2018.
the
Yes.
classic and the vintage that we were just talking about all the time. So, but besides this classic, we also reviewed your Rosso, which is a
Yes.
story apart, of course. And we have the two of the single vineyard wines that we talked about. So I want to, of course, hear from you about those, but maybe walk us through the whole portfolio, because you also produce some Tuscan labeled wines. And
Yes.
just to give us an overview
We are producing
about
two
what you guys
IGT
make.
wines.
Yeah.
Yes. So we are starting like our portfolio is not, of course, super wide. We are a small estate, so we are producing not too many wines. We start from our IGT wines. One is our Rubio, which is IGT wine made with 100% Sangiovese and has the particular characteristic that is not aged in oak. So it's a wine which is fully fermented and then aged in stainless steel.
So that's
we think
why you choose to put this in your portfolio, because you want to have a wine which gives the pure fruit without interference of the oak.
Exactly, yes. This is exactly the goal with our Rubio, is to show the characteristics of Sangiovese, so the purity of the fruit and the floral characteristics of Sangiovese without influence of any oak or any other material that can give an influence on the wine. So really, all the characteristics that you can feel in the wine with our Rubio are coming from the grape.
But you have, correct me if I'm wrong, if you look at the total number of hectares, there is quite still, I mean, you said you're not a huge estate, you have a fair amount of hectares, but still, in terms of the splits, there is quite some used for IGT wines still. Huh?
We have 5 hectares that we can dedicate to the production of our IGTs. We have our Rubio and also our Amphora Vignamasso, which is like the newest wine. We started with the first vintage produced was 2020. And that's, of course, 100% Sangiovese. We just have Sangiovese in our 16 hectares.
But there you use the Amphora.
Yes, exactly. That's a very smart guess. As the name says, we are using jars, so like amphorae. We have been experimenting with amphoras, with the jars since 2018, actually, so some years. What we really like about the jars, so about terracotta, the clay, is the fact that it's a very delicate way to age a wine if we don't use it in a kind of oxidative way. So we don't want to make a kind of orange wine or a kind of oxidative wine. We want to be very respectful of the characteristics of Sangiovese with a material that, differently than oak, is not giving any tannins, is not giving any specific flavor like oak is doing. So it's much more delicate, is really just opening up and enhancing the aromas, the aromatics of Sangiovese with a very, very delicate and respectful kind of influence. So
if you compare those two that you just mentioned, of course, you're looking in both wines, you're looking for the pure expression of the fruit. But the vessel that you're using is different, so that this is the big differences, obviously. But how would you then still characterize the difference between the two? Because you're looking for the same thing, and you're using different vessels.
We are looking like the goal, and actually I think this is a goal that we have in the production of all our wines, is to have a kind of light hand. So really to be showing which is the variety. The variety is Sangiovese. And when you have any of our wines in your glass, you should really feel the taste and smell, of course, of Sangiovese. Of course, declined in a way in different ways. The difference between our Rubio and our Vignamasso is that our Rubio, being vinified in stainless steel, is just purity of fruit. So really primary, secondary aromas, and that's it. And this is how we like it. When we come to our Amphora Vignamasso, we have, of course, a bit of influence of the amphora, of the jar, like with a bit more like balsamic notes, a bit of like herbal notes, which makes it a bit more like richer, in of course, a bit more complex, I would say. Of course, the micro-oxygenation of the amphora is softening a bit the tannins. So our Amphora Vignamasso is a bit more structured. As a wine is a bit more complex. So we are, of course, the influence of the amphora can be felt when you're tasting our Vignamasso, but we like using it in a delicate way. So actually the profile of the wine is very different, even if the goal is the same, using different styles, but with a kind of light hand in the vinification.
Yeah, but it's good to know, I think, for the people. So then we go to wines that actually you are allowed to call and refer to as Montalcino wines. So we start with the Rosso, and then tell us a little bit about that, and then we move to the Brunello wine.
Of course, yes. We so moving towards like the classic Montalcino wines, we are starting from our Rosso di Montalcino, which to us needs to be like a fresher, fruitier, more enjoyable, and more approachable expression of Sangiovese. We actually don't like very much the definition of baby Brunello that some people use
different things
for the Rosso di Montalcino. Of course, I have no problem with that. We just don't feel like it should be defined in that way, because otherwise our Rosso di Montalcino would always live in a way in the shade of the Brunello, which is not right, I think, because it has its own dignity. I think it's a really very nice wine because it's more drinkable, more enjoyable. I don't say you can open it every day, but almost every day, kind of, because it's really much easier to pair, much easier to open a bottle. Of course, less expensive, so you can open it with some friends, easy pairing, younger, of course, less oaky because we just use big oak casks for 10 to 12 months, so less than 1 year. And the goal is really to, again, have a light hand, showing a much more classic expression of Sangiovese, but still keeping it fresh, fruity, and drinkable, especially very different from the Brunello. We don't want anybody to have any mistake between these two wines.
Yeah, so
that's why we have
like
different
baby
vineyards.
Brunello, because it has nothing to do with Brunello in the end.
No, it's
think
just
about it like that.
really different. It's much less oaked. It's and actually we have different vineyards from our Rosso di Montalcino. For our Rosso di Montalcino, younger vines, the yields are a bit higher, not too high, but like for our Brunello can be like around 5,000 kilograms per hectare. For our Rosso can be 7,000, so a bit higher. This means because we don't want too much concentration. Of course, we want to have like fresher aromas. So we start already working from the vineyard to obtain different grapes for our Rosso di Montalcino, because the wine will be much different than our Brunello.
I think it's an interesting point, because I would like to pick up on what you said about referring to as baby Brunello, because I think it's a topic, not just for now. I think it's been a topic in the last few years. There's two things. My observation, I think the world is a different place now than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. So when Brunellos really became in fashion in these decades, I think people were had more appetite for, let's say, age-worthy wines, but also more heavier wines and let's say oaky wines. So that was really a thing. If you only look at the US, for instance, and you work there, so you know. This is also the style that was always what people asked for, even with the white wines and not just with reds. But I think the world is now looking at it differently. People are looking for more fruitier, fresher wines, low alcohol levels as well. So I think it's a global trend where I think the Rosso, for that reason, has a very bigger stage than it had 10 or 20 years ago, or maybe longer. So for that reason, I totally understand and I totally agree with you. I think you should look at it differently. And I think the second thing is, and maybe this is where sometimes the mistake comes, or where the misunderstanding comes, is that you were mentioning young vines, and it used to be policy, and with some wineries it still is policy, to always use just the young vines to fill that gap of not being able to use them properly for your Brunello, and use that just to have something to do to produce something, and then just name it a Rosso. But now, the way you look at it, and some other wineries and more wineries do the same, is you look at specific vineyards. Of course, you look at young vines, but you also look at specific vineyards that could work better for a Rosso. So then the whole philosophy and mindset changes. It's not just, okay, I need to plant new vines, and then the first 3 years I can only use them for a Rosso. So maybe that becomes a mistake. People think, okay, that's just how they do it. But now your thinking is different as well.
I completely agree because especially in the last probably 5 years, I think, the mentality has really changed. We are not thinking about our Rosso di Montalcino as a kind of like leftover from the Brunello, because one of the problems that Montalcino, I think, faced in the last decades is that, of course, Brunello di Montalcino was the first wine, and everybody was aiming to producing as much Brunello as possible. And the Rosso di Montalcino was like just a kind of declassification. So whatever grape was not good enough to make Brunello was used to make the second level wine, which really was suffering a lot from a quality point of view. Lately, there have been also a bit of like a generation change, kind of. So younger people are focusing more on this wine, really trying to make it like fresh, fruity, drinkable, worth buying it. Because really, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, Rosso di Montalcino was really suffering from a quality point of view. Right now, it's not like that anymore. It's a different kind of wine. I think it has a very big importance for a winery, for a producer in Montalcino, because it's like your kind of business card, as I call it, because probably it will be the first wine from Montalcino that people are going to taste. And then if they like it, then they're going to switch to your Brunello. So it's very important to produce a high quality Rosso di Montalcino, focusing from the start of the production process. So focusing on the grapes and not just choosing grapes that are not good enough to make Brunello.
Exactly. Well, you also mentioned that one of the other reasons is that the new generation winemakers and people in charge of the wineries in Montalcino, they have this different mindset. So it also helped with the switch of generations. It's sometimes a thing that you just need, just to give it attention in a winery as well.
Yes. I think it's because it's really like the previous generation was super focused on Brunello di Montalcino. The younger generation, of course, there is the focus on Brunello, but also on like this, which was like kind of unlucky wine a bit, to give it like dignity, because it's really important. You cannot produce just Brunello and sell just Brunello. You need a wine which is like a bit more introductory from this point of view to the appellation. No, so really with this kind of switch, I think in the last 5-10 years, the mentality changed, and so really now we have some of, I think, very high quality Rosso di Montalcino, and we have more and more high quality of this wine, and I think this is very good for the appellation in general.
I agree, because they're two very different things, and you cater to different audiences in terms of what people like, or maybe even with the same people, the moment when you drink the wine is very different probably as well. So somebody can love Brunellos, but it doesn't mean they always want to drink a Brunello. Sometimes it's the better opportunity to drink a Rosso. For that reason.
It's not possible to drink always Brunello, I think, for everybody.
Well, some people do that.
Sometimes Rosso di Montalcino is nice.
I think you're missing out on a lot if you do that, even if you can. So now let's go into this one. And then after that, I will want to pick up your single vineyard wines as well. But this one we have, so let's just also enjoy and taste it. And I will let you do the talking and tell us what is so special or what's different. What's your philosophy behind your classic Brunello? And the 18 vintage, we already talked a little bit about, what maybe you want to emphasize on that as well. So I have it in the glass here.
I have my glass here too. So just a couple words about our classic Brunello. So like our San Polo Brunello di Montalcino, which is actually the only Brunello that we are producing, which is not a single vineyard, but it's made from a blend of grapes coming from all the older plots of our estate. So it is really showing not a specificity of a single vineyard, but actually is showing the characteristic of the whole terroir of San Polo. We are of the southeastern slope of Montalcino. We are at an altitude which is around 450 and 500 meters, so quite high. We are facing southeast. So I always say that really the key word when you're talking about San Polo is balance. San Polo in general, because we have characteristics which are in between a warm area and a cool area. Because warm area, because of the southern exposure, so we have a nice ripening level, nice concentration, a good amount of sunlight that can ripen well our grapes. But we also have altitude, which gives us, especially during the growing seasons, the growing season, a nice diurnal range, so nice excursion of temperature between day and night. And this is really important to retain freshness, both from an aromatic point of view and acidity point of view in our grapes. And I think really this Brunello di Montalcino shows this kind of double characteristic that the terroir of San Polo has. Freshness, but also nice concentration, nice ripening level. So overall, a nice balance. And I think in the 2018 vintage, this is really shown quite well, because what I really love about 2018, as we were saying before, is the freshness of the vintage. Has a nice freshness to it, nice fruitiness, but also with a nice concentration. It's not like super concentrated like other vintages could be. So really it's showing a nice balance, floral part, fruity part, some spiciness due to the oakiness, which is, I think, well integrated. So it's really showing, in my opinion, of course, the specificity of the terroir of San Polo in a vintage which is more classic than the ones we have been experiencing lately.
As you mentioned, this is really what you're trying to do here, or just what you're doing, is show the completeness of the estate. So as some wineries would say, okay, we're just going to pick from a few vineyards and put this one in the Classic Brunello. Maybe they don't have the luxury to make different Brunellos, but okay, if you have, but it has to be from all the vineyards, because you want to show the complexity.
Yes.
And the variety of the different vineyards and plots.
Yes, this is really because we are also producing 2 single vineyards, as you were mentioning earlier, and that's a different story, because with the single vineyards we want to really show the specificity of a plot, which we found really interesting because of really some peculiar characteristics. With our San Polo Brunello, we really want to show how is the terroir of San Polo, how is the southeastern slope at an altitude of almost 500 meters. Yeah. So higher complexity, but also really showing the overall picture of our terroir.
Yeah. So, and then if you think about what makes your estate different, of course you look a lot at the vineyards, which is important aspect, and as you already mentioned, it's the altitude, the orientation, a few things, the soils as well. If you talk about why Marilisa decided to buy particularly this estate, and of course you said, okay, there was a connection with the family that owned it, but you just don't want to buy it because you can. There has to be a few reasons, key reasons why you want to do that, and also if you have a vision, which they have at Allegheny and which Marilisa has for sure, then you think ahead. You don't think 5 years ahead. You think about 20 years or 30 or 40 years ahead. So what can you maybe take us with you a little bit on what their thinking was, on when they came there, why they picked San Polo?
I think it's from this point of view, it's really nice having the possibility to listen to Marilisa when she's explaining, like, of course, I'm telling the story, how she came to know San Polo. And the first time she came here, of course, she fell in love with the place. So, as we say, the terroir, all the landscapes, the vineyards, aspect, altitude, but also a thing that she really loves about San Polo is how the winery is, how the cellar is, and the focus that San Polo has always had about sustainability. And this is really something that, in a way, embodies the focus that Marilisa has on the future. So, and also on the future generations. So her daughters, and then of course the even future generations, really focusing on sustainability. San Polo has a cellar which is built completely underground, using like the hill. So it's built like a kind of tunnel dug into the hill. It's working just using natural characteristics. So there is no energy used in controlling temperatures and humidity levels inside the cellar. It's built following the principles of bioarchitecture. So actually it's really integrated in the environment of San Polo. Being built underground is also hidden. So it's not very visible when you come, and so
it's one with the nature, basically.
Exactly, yes. So it really keeps the environment very natural, very green, It's not disturbing. It's not like a huge winery or castle or anything that you can see when you're coming, but it's very hidden and not so visible. And it's really working using really a small amount of energy, because everything is controlled just by using nature. There are like vents, thermal chimneys, very, in a way, simple techniques, but very effective to be able to control the temperature levels and the humidity levels, which are, of course, the two most important factors. You're talking about a cellar in a completely natural way. So what really Marilisa loved about San Polo was, of course, as we said, the location, but also how the previous family decided to build the cellar, because actually, as Marilisa always says, she gives credit to the Fratton family, so the previous owners, which built the cellar. Actually, when she arrived, the cellar was empty.
Yeah.
It never produced one bottle of wine, but it was already built.
It was already there.
Yes, and so she really loves this approach that San Polo has towards sustainability. And actually, since when she arrived at San Polo, she wanted to continue this kind of
they did
approach.
A lot of investment still and changes
Exactly.
to make it even more
yes.
eco-friendly and
yes.
fit into the
try
ecosystem.
to improve this kind of approach towards sustainability, getting the Casa Clima certification in 2013, which is a quite strict certification, like of like kind of German origins, which is evaluating your environmental impact. And we were the first Tuscany state and the second state in the whole Italy to get it in 2013. And then, of course, we are farming organically. We are officially organic certified since 2017. And we got a couple of years ago the Equalitas certification, which is another sustainability certification. Actually, Equalitas involves not just the environmental sustainability, but also the economic, the social sustainability. So it's an approach which is a bit more wider, and this really witnesses in a way that the approach that Marilisa and also Carlotta and Caterina have towards sustainability, thinking about the future.
Yes. I have to say, out of all the wineries I've talked to in the past years, and that's still quite a lot. I think you are for sure in the top 3, maybe you're even the top 1 when it comes to qualifications and certifications. I think it's a good thing. I'm just not saying that because, but I think it shows how for you and for the Allegrini family, but for the company as a whole, it's not just finished when you have a qualification, because you always look for something else to improve and to change. And you're already mentioning maybe one qualification gives you something and the other one brings a total different aspect into the game. So for that reason, it does make sense to continue to follow different classifications and qualifications as well.
Yes, and
so it can never focus on all the aspects. There's always some aspects that will be covered with others as well.
Yes, and I think that really our goal is to keep improving, because really the kind of like the progress keeps moving forward. So it's not enough to say, okay, I got this certification and now I sit here and I stand still, because the progress keeps moving forward. So we want to keep moving forward too. So like last year, for example, we got also the BRC certification, which is not strictly sustainability, but it's like more like kind of process certification. We really want to keep improving, keep getting better, and keeping the pace with the progress, which keeps moving forward. So that's really our philosophy, kind of.
Well, I think it's very interesting. People can read also about this on the articles that we wrote on the website and on the Instagram, because we, of course, gave some enough attention to that, because I think it's an important aspect. Now, let's talk a little bit about the 2 single vineyard wines, which we are not enjoying today, but we did before. By the way, this one we rated with a 93-point score, which in my book is very good, if you, especially if you look at the vintage, because it's always easy to, like you said, refer to the 15, 16, the 10s. But what do you do in a vintage like 18? It's not given as perfect conditions. You have to think and work harder also in the vineyards to still make a good,
in the vineyard,
good wine. So we were very impressed, also because of that reason. But then we also have the Vigna Vecchia, which we
Yes.
also reviewed, and we have oh, help me,
Podarnovi, the other one.
Podarnovi, yeah.
Yes.
So maybe tell us a little bit about those two.
Yes.
As well. Yeah.
Actually, this was one of the biggest projects that we have been working on in the last years. Actually, starting from 2015 vintage. So really, when I first arrived to San Polo, walking through all the vineyards, I've seen that even though they are like, we have all our vineyards in the same area, so we don't have vineyards in different slopes of Montalcino. They are all close to our estate and our cellar.
Yeah.
But I immediately thought that every single plot was different from the other ones because they have different aspect, different altitude, different soil, and so the first thing that I thought was let's try to do all the micro vinifications.
Yeah.
So keep everything separate and try to find out if I'm right, and
Yeah.
so those differences are really
it
then
proves
showing
in the
in the
glass
wine.
in the end.
Exactly. So it's really was something, as we said, let's try it, no? And immediately, starting from 2015, we found out that really there were many differences between the different plots, and so we thought immediately about the Crew project. So single vineyards to show also the specificities of some specific and particular vineyards that we had, and we thought it would have been very nice to show the two opposite characteristics of San Polo, which are Podarnovi from one side and Vigna Vecchia from the other side. Podarnovi is the coolest expression, the most elegant. Sometimes I call it kind of like feminine, meaning like elegant, gentle, not so like not very highly concentrated expression of San Polo, because Podarnovi plot is facing southeast, has a soil richer in clay, which is a cooling component of the soil and can retain quite a bit of water. So the expression is bigger clusters, bigger berries, more classic expression of Brunello di Montalcino, which shows really the elegance, acidity, and not high concentration of like older styles Brunello di Montalcino. While Vigna Vecchia is the warmest vineyard, is facing west, so the warmest kind of aspect that you can have. It's much steeper, has a soil which is very rich in rocks. It's very rocky and very rich in galestro also. So kind of like
so it has broader shoulders, is more masculine if you talk about feminine on the
higher structure, more masculinity, higher concentration. Berries are much smaller, and also bunches are much smaller because the water availability for the vines is much less because it's steeper, and then the soil is draining the water in a much more effective way. So really, we thought it was very nice to show the two opposite sides.
And you have very low production on both.
Yes.
It's the vine. You're not
couple thousand bottles because like actually the plots are not so small because Podarnovi is 3 hectares and Vigna Vecchia is 2 hectares. But actually, we just choose the best grapes from each plot.
Because you still use it for Classic Brunello, for instance.
Exactly. And then the grapes that are not used for Podarnovi and Vigna Vecchia in the two single vineyards are used for the Brunello Classico. Yes.
And how did the people in Montalcino respond when you were talking about this project and you were thinking about that? Because now what you see is in the last years there's coming more people following the trends of cruise and single vineyards, but it was never really a thing in Montalcino. So
yes,
what was the reaction of the local people? Let's put it like that.
Yes, it was a bit, I would say maybe skeptical. Like it's because in Montalcino, really, the crew thing. So like how to say, the philosophy of thinking about crews, single vineyards, has never been very eradicated because it was really much more common to blend the grapes coming from different slopes to have a more balanced wine. And so not many wineries actually were doing like of a parcelization process like we were doing, and so people were really skeptical in the beginning, and even some journalists was like not so nice, saying that we didn't want to make a Brunello Riserva, and so we decided to make a crew so it could go on the market 1 year earlier. So it was more like a commercial thing. So yeah, was was a bit not very nice actually. But I mean, it's this was the first thought.
Yeah, yeah.
No, they wanna
I mean,
they just wanna
there
have
was
more
no
labels.
experience with this, so they did not know what to expect.
But actually, then of course we are still a young state, and Podernovi and Mignavecchia are young wines because the first vintages were 2015, and the last one is 2019, which will go on the market in 2024. So really,
so
just
we only
5
have
vintages.
four examples of it now.
Yes, so really, but actually now the people tasted them in more
they
than one
understand why
vintage. They are already starting to enjoy them, to like them, to appreciate the fact that we are really trying to show specificities. And I think more and more wineries in Montalcino are doing this kind of using this kind of philosophy, and I think it is quite right. So we are happy with our decision.
It's a trend that is also in the world, on the world stage, in different countries and regions is being done. I think people are looking for pure expression as pure as possible, wine lovers. So they want to know the story about the vineyards. And it's for me, there's always a value add if it's unique enough. I mean, of course, it needs to deserve to be a single vineyard or a cru wine. If the differences are not so big, then it doesn't really make sense to do it. But you really made a science out of it and investigating if it was worth doing this project. So
this was really fundamental to us because, as you said, it's completely pointless producing single vineyards if you just want to have more labels. No, they really need to be
and especially in a region like Montalcino, which was never, like you said, focused on that. So people see it just as a waste of spending more money on doing different things when you can just make more of the same and still make good money. Because then the thing is, if everybody makes good money, nobody sees the need to make changes. And this is the moment when you stand out if you do, because later people say, I wish I would have done that in 15 or in 18, and now, you were there, so you're at the front of it. Let's put it like that.
Yes, actually, we are glad because it's really something that now more and more people are trying to do, and I think we think it's the right path. Again, if the crews are real crews, so real single vineyards, it's really showing a specificity, being like more honest from this point of view, no? And so we think, and then probably our goal will be, it's going to take some years, but really to produce every single plot that we have to make a wine on its own. So
you want to even further
working more and more on this single vineyard project. Yes,
that's interesting. So it doesn't stop with 2.
No, not at all.
By the way, you do still produce the Reserva as well, huh? Or not?
Yes, we are still producing it. Just in the best vintages, so it's not produced every vintage, just in the vintages that we consider outstanding, because one of the little problems with a Reserva, in our opinion, is the fact that being aged in general like 1 year longer, sometimes since oak agings in Montalcino are not short already, because the minimum of 2 years for the Reserva, you usually age it for at least 3 years. We want to make sure that the longer aging is improving the quality of the wine. So that's why we are producing it.
The risk is that if the vintage is not good enough, it will hurt the wine instead of improving the wine.
It will lower the quality instead of like making it higher, no? And so we don't want to risk that. And so we are just producing it in the best vintages. And actually, it's a selection of the best grapes coming from all the other plots. So it's like the best version of our San Polo
selection even within the different vineyards. You even make the selection at the sorting table probably as well, or you do it when you already start to pick the grapes.
We do first a selection in the vineyard, so we select the best grapes, and then of course there are always people on the sorting table at the winery checking, but the first selection is done on the vine, kind of, no?
Because there you know where you pick it, so then you,
yes,
that makes sense.
That's really
interesting because I was thinking, Canalicio di Sopra, they also make single vineyard wines, and they have this nice orientation with the river, and I think I tasted their single vineyards as well, and I think they really have a right to do that, as you guys have as well, and I think that's what you're looking for. They need to earn the right to
Of
be a
course,
single
yes.
vineyard wine. And,
This is very
if you
nice.
can do that, then it's really good.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're actually just over the hour. I have a little bit of extra time. I don't know about you, but I think we
Oh yeah,
already.
I'm
Okay,
very happy.
so
So
we
no
can
worries.
continue a little bit.
No
So if
hurry.
people have any questions, I will just repeat it again. I said it in the beginning, but then they can just put them in the chat, and we can do it at the end. So let's talk a little bit about the question that I already had for you, which came up in last episode when Bibi asked me. But I asked him, okay, if you want to ask one question to Riccardo and you want to talk to a winemaker from Montalcino, what would be the question to ask? And I think he picked the right question for the right region, because his question was, what do you think about all these experiments that are going on with Sangiovese and the clones and wineries in Tuscany trying to improve or to change the varietal Sangiovese? And I was already smiling when he asked the question, because if you're going to ask somebody, then ask the people that have their own name for a variety and are very keen on calling it Brunello when it's sort of a Sangiovese. So now, Riccardo, what's your opinion about this trend, more or less?
So I would say that I understand the reason why there is all this research about new clones, about trying to find like a new kind of versions of Sangiovese, but I think it's, in my opinion, my personal opinion, the wrong answer for the right question. Meaning that, of course, there is like how to say, the will to improve, and so to always have a better version of Sangiovese. But I don't think we should look too much to the clonal selection. I think we should go in the vineyards, in the older vineyards, and really do like a mass selection. So select the older vines that are showing the best characteristics. And so like going back to the past kind of in some ways, because we have like a how to say, a heritage of like genetic material that is really, really nice. And it's the same thing that we are doing right now here at San Polo. When I need to replace vines that die, we don't plant new clones, but we select like we do a mass selection from the vines that we already have in our oldest vineyards, and the ones that we think that give us the best quality.
So you reject from other vines that are in your ecosystem already.
Yes, because they are already adapted to this, of course, ecosystem, and also we've been trying them for years. So I don't think there is all the need for like new clones, like clonal selection, try to cross different kind of Sangiovese to obtain very different characteristics. I like Sangiovese the way it is, so I don't think there is all that need to change it or to improve it. And as I said, I understand the reason why people are trying to do this, especially considering the climate change and the different conditions that we are facing and that we will have to face. But I think that probably is the wrong answer, in my opinion. The right answer would be to go and do a master selection of the clones of the genetic material that we already have in our vineyards.
It's interesting. I, by the way, completely agree on the philosophy that you have on it. But correct me if I'm wrong, because you're in the middle of it in Tuscany. But when we started this project, of course, one of the goals that we had is we wanted to show Tuscany through 5 lenses, as we always say, which is 5 regions, sub-regions, that more or less all focus on Sangiovese, one more than the other. The only exception in this is Bulgaria, but we still wanted to talk about Bulgaria. And some estates in Bulgaria actually also work with Sangiovese. So in this case, it's Altesoro or Poggio Altesoro or not. So we don't have to talk about that. But the idea was to show the diversity and the effect that Sangiovese can still have within a big total region, and then within small regions, what is the differences? But if you now think about it and ask yourself, where is this happening, this clone changes and these people trying to improve and develop? Isn't this more in the, I would say, the larger Chianti parts? Because this is also the area where they a lot of the old vines were just pulled out because if you look at the history, and Paolo will talk about that next week as well, because he's been there firsthand. You've seen all these people pulling out the old vines because they were not economically interesting enough. So they don't have when you talk about old vines and using them and trying to find the answer in them, in the Chianti, the bigger Chianti region, there's not a lot of that left.
Nope.
So maybe
yes,
there's where people want to do that, and for that reason as well, that they don't have much of or they should go to Montalcino and get some vines from you. But I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen either, because there is this kind of difference, no? Like small Sangiovese, big Sangiovese, so Sangiovese Grosso or Piccolo, depending. I think it's a pity in general to have taken away all the older vines. I understand that not all the old vines are good vines, because you need to go there and select and watch how the old vines are behaving and select really the ones that are really worth it to be selected. But I also don't think that in my opinion, actually, at least the solution is go looking for new clones. Because it's changing a variety which I think it's already good enough. So there's no way of improving.
And then you don't know how it's going to respond in the future, so you still have no crystal ball. So maybe you think I have the right solution, but it can turn out in the next decade or 2 decades that is the wrong choice that you made. Because
that would be a big problem.
Now you bet all your money on one horse, and then the horse doesn't win the race, so now you have a problem.
So no, it's a bit too risky, yes, for sure.
Okay, then let's just go straight into the question for next week then, because we're at the topic of answering and bringing the questions. So next week we're going to talk with Paolo De Macchi, and actually I'm very happy that we have the opportunity still to talk to him, because obviously the Esola Olena estate has changed ownership, so he is still involved, but at some point he will not be so involved anymore. But he's a guy obviously that's seen Chianti change and had his own ideas and philosophy on that. So I asked you before the show, can you think about the question that you want to ask him? So now I'm very curious about what you want me to bring to the table for him.
Yes, I would love, since Paolo De Macchi, of course, made the history of Chianti Classico many decades, and he's of course super skilled on Sangiovese. I would love really to ask him and to listen to his answer about what he thinks about climate change and how he is facing, or he would face climate change from a viticulture point of view, considering how is Sangiovese, considering that really the conditions are changing. We are struggling a bit, thinking 10 years ahead, 20 years ahead, how conditions will be and what we should do. Since we are a young state, I would love to listen to the opinion of a much more experienced winemaker like Paolo is. So this is what I would like to ask him.
Well, let's see. I'm very curious about that as well. Maybe one of his answers is the solution, in his opinion, is move to the north, as he's doing as well with his own family estate, which he still has, of course.
Yes.
Actually, I know some people that have owned estates in Montalcino that went also back to the north, and there's a lot of people actually that are from the north that went to the south and now see with the climate change, they don't want to stay here anymore. So it could be a solution, but you're not asking, this is not the answer that you will take for granted. You want to have honestly, more of an answer in the area, of course. Yeah, very good. Okay. We will be sure to ask him the question. If there's anybody else in the audience that still has a question, I don't think I have one, but I will just scroll back to see if there's something that I missed. Then feel free to bring in the questions in the chat. In the meanwhile, I have also one question left. So if you would not be working with Sangiovese and Montalcino, and of course you have experience in the north and you worked in the US as well, so what would be a variety or a region where you would want to put your hands on as well? So if there's something else, if you want to take a totally different opportunity, what would that be?
If I would have like the possibility to choose between any region on planet Earth, I would love to work in Burgundy with Pinot Noir, because it's my favorite place. Second, because first is Montalcino, but then other than Montalcino, I love Burgundy in general, and I love Burgundy Pinot Noirs. So probably would be really nice for me to be working there, because I really love the area. I like the fact that Pinot Noir, from some point of view, can be similar to Sangiovese, meaning that it's a delicate variety, it's not easy to grow it, it's not easy to vinify it, especially in a high quality way. So yes, if I could choose, probably I would fly to Burgundy and work there.
There's worse places than that, or worse reasons to go and do that. I totally, I like your choice. But one of the big differences would be, of course, that Pinot Noir is now being grown in a lot of places in the world, and also successfully. Yes. Of course, there is only one Burgundy. There is no second Burgundy. So that I understand. But that is, of course, a big difference with Sangiovese, because as we said in the beginning, you cannot find another place outside of Tuscany that is able to make good Sangiovese wines. So I think, although with Pinot Noir, it's the opposite. You have these days very good Pinot Noirs from the US, from South Africa.
Have a lot of areas. I think it would be a more challenging way of working, no? Because as you said, with the Sangiovese, not so many places can give you high quality Sangiovese. With Pinot Noir, I think Burgundy is still one of the best places, and so I would be quite safe. But the challenge would be more difficult, because of course many other places in the world can make a very high quality Pinot Noirs. So.
One last question then. I would like to know from you, is there any projects going on or in the near future where you are going to look at changes in the portfolio and in the wines that you produce? And you already mentioned a little bit, long-term philosophy is to go more into single vineyard and cruise, but maybe you want to elaborate on that, or maybe you have something else which you would want to share that you're working on secretly in the underground cellar.
We have two like big projects which we are already working on. The first one is, as I was saying, like the single vineyard approach. So we really want to to show the specificities of every single plot that you have, producing a single vineyard wine from every plot. So we are already trying, doing a lot of microvinification, but microvinifications for all our wines. So our IGT, our Rosso di Montalcino, I would like to produce one single vineyard of our Rosso di Montalcino, and then maybe other single vineyards Brunellos. So really focusing on the specificities of the single vineyards. This from a vineyard point of view, and then from a cellar point of view, we are really more and more moving towards even more gentle and, like, I would say, low intervention approach in the winery. So really trying to add almost nothing, or if possible nothing. I don't love the expression like natural winemaking, because natural means nothing and everything.
That would mean that all the other stuff is not natural.
Yes, we still want to make well-made wines, high quality wines, but really we think that if you have if you have grapes which are high quality enough, you don't need to be like high intervention in the cellar. So we are lowering more and more and more our intervention when we are working with our grapes. This is going to take some years, because it's not easy. We need to understand how we should do this, because of course the goal is to keep the quality as high as possible and also to improve it, of course. So it's a slow process, but this is another thing that we have been working on in the last years, and we will keep working on in the next years.
It's one thing that you can still influence in the cellar. There's also another thing which is a major part of your cellar, but you cannot influence too much, is the oak, because of course you're in Montalcino. So if you want to still be able to produce Montalcino wines, then you cannot strip away too much of that. There is some rules involved in that game. So
that's
that
a bit
part is
strict, so
sort
there
of
is
off
no way of
limits, more or less.
escaping. But yeah, but actually,
Yeah.
even from that point of view, we can use lower toasted oak or bigger oak, trying to be more gentle. We will keep using also the jars, the terracotta amphore, even for our rosso and brunello for the fermentation, because you've seen that it's really delicate, giving oxygen in a delicate way. So we are really
interesting. You're actually allowed to, and I never thought about it, but that's good to talk about that. You're actually allowed in the fermentation part of your process to use those terracotta, for instance.
yes,
And
yes,
then
yes.
and
There is no like the
then
only
you can still.
yes.
It's not. It's about the aging. It's
Exactly,
not about,
yes.
this is
With
what
Brunello, it's
prescribes the
about
oak.
aging, 2 years of aging in oak. With the Rosso di Montalcino, it's not even mandatory aging it in oak.
Yeah.
So you can choose whether to age it in oak or not. During the fermentation, you can use stainless steel, concrete, jars, terracotta,
Yeah, so
anything
here
you
you
want.
have
So
room to play.
yes, yes, we are experimenting quite a bit to because the goal is always to keep improving, keep finding new things, of course, as long as they are improving the quality.
Okay. Still one more question, and then I will just stop. Then
My pleasure.
you have not been too long yet in Montalcino, but of course you learn quick and you look around, and like you said, you live there, so you go from home to work, and then you pass some wineries and you pass different vineyards, and of course you knew Brunello and Montalcino before you came there, so you probably had your fair share of Brunello wines. So if you would like to pick out one winery, and I'm not going to ask you which one you want to work for, but which one do you think is, in your opinion, an interesting winery next to San Polo? And it probably is a very different one than the one that you guys have. What winery would you shine your light on in terms of what you like and what they do and the wines they make?
Okay, this is a very nice question.
Yeah.
You
can name two. I will not let you limit you to one. If you want, you can take two.
Yes, because one is very small, and actually the name, because it's our neighbors, San Polino, so like smaller San Polo. I love the owners because they are really nice. They are really attached to their land. They are like really farming in the way I mean farming and producing wine. And also, of course, they are in the same area as we are, and so it's really, I love their wines. I love the way they really intend and they think about the production of the wine. And then another in a completely different area and also completely different size, which I really like because I know the CEO quite well, and they have a lot of things in mind. They keep improving. They don't sit and wait, but they keep doing new things. Is Argiano, which is like almost like on the opposite side of Montalcino, kind of quite bigger than San Polo is. But I love the way they are working on the single vineyards as we are. The fact that they're really experimenting a lot. They have quite a nice status already, kind of, but they don't want to just say, okay, I stop here. They keep improving. They keep trying new things. They uprooted some vineyards. They replanted. So they have a lot of projects, and so I like their let's say they will not to be stopping.
Sort of the same mindset when it comes to innovation and continuous improvement, etc., etc.
They want to keep improving. They don't want to stop, which sometimes I think can be a problem in Montalcino. People are just relying on a kind of tradition, and they are not willing to try new things, to improve it, to change. So I really love Argiano from this point of view.
Okay, good to hear. Thank you for your time very much, Riccardo. It's been a pleasure. So we're still going to talk later in the show, not the next episode, because next episode we're going to Chianti, but we're still going to talk to your colleague from Bulgaria, so Poggio al Tesoro, Christian. I think maybe you want to, okay, you can ask him a question as well. We didn't prepare this. Officially, you're only allowed to ask one question to the next guest, but since you're colleagues, I will allow you to maybe think about a simple question for him as well, as you're working in the same group of companies. That's a good one.
This is
I put you on the spot.
Yeah, it's unexpected, so it's a bit more difficult to.
You think about it for a minute. I will tell the people what we're going to do next week, and then you have some time to think.
Yes.
So next week we're going to, as mentioned, we're going to go to Chianti, and we're going to talk to Parro de Marchi, which is one of the iconic winemakers of Tuscany and Chianti. Isolo Olena is the estate, and Ceparello is this iconic wine. But we're going to talk, of course, about all the wines and the total estate. So we're really going to talk about what shaped Chianti, and now we have Chianti Classico, but there was one Chianti at all. So that whole story will be a story about history a lot as well. And then we're going to, of course, later on talk to the people from Poggio al Tesoro in Bulgaria. So now it's your time for your question.
Yes.
What do you want to ask?
I thought about a nice question that I would like to ask Christian. Since, of course, in Montalcino, we just talk about Sangiovese, so there is no option of blending with any other variety. And in Bulgaria, it's a bit different because it's a land of blending different, like Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, or others. And since Poggio Tesoro is making 100% Cabernet Franc, which is dedicato Walter, and also blended wines, I would like to ask him if he prefers working on 100% the same variety, or if he likes better to blending, like to be blending different varieties.
That's an interesting question. Yeah. Well, he has the luxury to do both, so you can choose. Not every day, probably, where he wants to work on, but it's an interesting one. So we'll be sure to ask him.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
And
it was really my pleasure.
So my regards to the rest of the people at San Polo. It was a pleasure to talk with you, but also enjoy the wine. So for the people that are watching, we had the Classic Brunello 2018 today. If you go to the website, you will find a review for this one, but also the single vineyard wines plus the Rosso that we reviewed. So if they want to learn more about the wine and see where they can get it, it's all to be found on the website. And I would like to wish you a good weekend already.
Thank you very much,
Riccardo, and to the people that are watching as well. And this whole episode will be able to be watched in a replay. So we made a nice recording for the people that cannot get enough of us and still want to see again. More than 1 hour, almost 1.5 hours of Niels and Riccardo.
Thank you very much again,
Riccardo.
It was really a pleasure.
And thank you everybody for watching. Okay.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao.